Hello, my friends. My name is Isabelle Delali. I'm doing this video today because I was recently asked after I wrote an article about fatherless daughters. Why is it that fatherless daughters, tend to attract men of low qualities? So I put that on Facebook, and I got the response was overwhelming. People DM'd me and asked questions and stuff like that. And one of the questions, because I talked about, fatherless daughters quite a lot. And one of the question asked was, at what stage in my life I gave my life to Christ. I became a Christian. And I thought, okay, that's a very good question. Instead of replying by write or in writing, let me actually do a video talking about my Christian faith, right? Okay, so I was brought up by my mum, single-handed, and when I was 13, I felt overwhelmed. I was really overwhelmed because I was growing up in a single parent home. My mom was both, she was playing the role of the dad and mom and everything at the same time. So there were challenges, a lot of challenges. So those challenges kind of caused me to feel overwhelmed, to feel hopeless. I was in despair, let's put it that way. So there were many challenges, right? And in the end, I felt like I was a burden, on my mum. And, the hopelessness, that feeling of when you're kind of, you're feeling heavy in yourself, you're in despair because, there were so many lack of this and lack of that. And, the fact that, mum, very caring mum, but obviously she had to go out there and work, and there was a time where she was working 7 days a week at the beginning, and it was difficult. So I felt lost. So, feeling lost can be caused by several factors, right? So it could be, lack of purpose for someone. It could be lack of fulfillment. It could be lack of focus. It could be poverty, right? So those things will make you feel lost and be in despair. Well, in my case, as I said, it was the feeling of feeling overwhelmed. So I was overwhelmed with difficult situations, and that state of mind, caused me to lose control of, lose control and the willingness to live, to continue. So at the time, my mom, at that stage of our life, mom was working 6 days a week. So she worked Monday to Saturday, right? So she goes to the market every day, Monday all the way to Saturday. And then Sunday now she started going to church. So we'll go to church. There's this church around the corner, the house where we lived. So, Sundays we'll go to church. We go to church and it was something we started at that stage quite recently as well. So we started going to church around the corner. And one day what happened was, mom was invited to this event that was happening in town, but she didn't tell us then. So we didn't know about it. I didn't know there was anything happening because in my mind, I got to a point where the sense of despair was so much that I didn't see any way out. So the only way out for me at the time, because I felt I was a burden, on my mom. So I said to myself, if I didn't exist, then that burden will be lifted. So I'd plan, that Saturday, to take my life. But what happened that Saturday in the end was that, as I said, mom was invited to this event that was happening in town. And then, Saturday morning, Mum was at home, 10 o'clock, she was still at home, 11 o'clock. We were thinking, oh, what's going on? And then she said, oh, there's this event happening. And then she was invited. She met this group of, Christian women. They're from Full Gospel they're like business women, but from the group is called Full Gospel. And she was invited, but the whole family was invited. So she wanted us all to go. And I was like, oh, no, Mom, I can't go because I've got so much to do. Saturdays I do this. And, I didn't want to go. So I tried everything that I could to convince her to leave me, alone at home. But, oh, my goodness, everything I did, my mom refused. So I couldn't persuade her to leave me at home. So she said, no, each one of you get ready, we are all going. And then that was what happened. However, what happened was, right, as I said, Mum used to go to work Monday to Saturday. So in the meantime, I was collecting every medications, from here and then. I was collecting them and putting them in one little box, like a container. So I knew, the plan that I had and what I wanted to do that very Saturday. However, it didn't go accordingly because I couldn't convince my mom to leave me home on my own. So, we all got ready and, we all went to this event. And you know what? Something happened that day. Something amazing happened to me that day. At that event, there was a group of youth who were singing. They were doing like choreography on worship songs. And that was the very first time in my life I saw like a group of young people my age, singing and then, doing dancing on the songs. And it was just so, it was, how can I describe that? I was crying. I didn't know why I was crying. I was crying so much. But deep down, as I was crying, I felt this immense peace. The peace was indescribable. And I thought, why am I crying? I didn't understand why I was crying. Anyway, at the end of the worship, they asked if there was anyone who would like to give their life to Christ, and they explained what that meant, giving your life to Christ. And I went forward. I put my hand up and I went forward, and I gave my life to Christ on that day. And I can tell you that from that day onward, I felt a change, a massive change. God stepped into my life and he really pulled me out of that despair. He pulled me out of that suicidal ideation that I had. He pulled me out of the hopelessness that I felt. My life had changed. It was never the same again. Clearly the challenges, were still there, but God gave me peace and he gave me hope. Right? And subsequently, I told Mom that I wanted to join the group, of the youth who were singing. And the group was called Les Fabricants de Joie. Les Fabricants de Joie. So I joined that group and we traveled all across the country, talking about Jesus and we gave our testimonies, our stories. And, how our stories, how God transformed our lives and God transformed other people's who were hearing our stories life as well. And from that day onward, when I joined that group and I started traveling, around the country, with them, during the Easter break, we'll travel. During the summer break, we'll travel. And sometimes, during the Christmas break as well. And I tell you, something amazing happened. And I'm just here today giving, my story, that I could have been a statistic, right? Had I taken my life at that young age of 13, when I felt lost, when I felt hopeless, when I was in despair. But God, God had a plan for me. He had something different completely for me. And he didn't allow me to go in that direction. He stepped in and rescued me. And this is why I'm here today. So therefore, if any of you listening, to my story today, if you're feeling, that sense of despair, that sense of hopelessness, that sense of overwhelmingness, know and be reassured that there is hope. There is hope. There is hope. If only you'll allowed, that same God who pulled me out of my despair, if only you'll allow God to pull you out of your despair, you will see things will change and he will turn it around for you. Look at me today. I gave my life to Christ at that age of 13. At the point where the very day I was about to take my life away, God stepped in and rescued me. So if anything else, please give Jesus a chance, right?